There comes a point in life when you realize something important. Most of what drains your energy isn't life itself, it's how much you react to it. People's opinions, small failures, delays, criticism, misunderstandings, they all become heavy only when you allow them to sit in your mind longer than they deserve. Training yourself to get unbothered doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionless. It means becoming unshakable. It means learning the skill of staying centered while everything around you tries to pull you off balance. Control your reaction. Not every situation is the foundation of emotional strength. Life will always present moments you cannot predict or fully control. People will say things you don't like. Situations will unfold unfairly, and plans will not always go your way. But the real difference between someone who stays calm and someone who constantly feels overwhelmed is not the situation itself, it is the reaction that follows it. When you react immediately without thinking, you give external events power over your inner peace. That instant emotional response often comes from ego, fear, or past experiences, not from logic. In that moment, you are not choosing, you are being controlled. But when you learn to pause, even for a few seconds, you create space between what happens and what you do next. That space is where awareness lives, and awareness is where control begins. Training yourself to control reactions does not mean suppressing emotions. It means understanding them without letting them take charge. You can feel anger without acting on it. You can feel hurt without reacting impulsively. You can feel disappointment without letting it define your entire mood. This is emotional maturity, and it is built slowly through practice. Most problems in life become bigger because of reactions, not because of events themselves. A small insult becomes a conflict. A minor setback becomes a breakdown. A misunderstanding becomes a permanent distance. But when you respond with calmness instead of impulse, you reduce damage and maintain clarity. The strongest people are not those who never get triggered, they are those who refuse to stay triggered. They process, they reflect, and then they respond with intention instead of emotion. This ability protects your peace and strengthens your mindset over time. Ultimately, mastering your reaction is about reclaiming control over your inner world. When you stop being a slave to every emotional impulse, begin to move with clarity, confidence, and stability regardless of what life throws at you. Not every opinion that reaches you deserves space in your mind. One of the biggest reasons people lose peace is because they treat every comment, suggestion, or judgment as something important. In reality, most opinions people give are shaped by their own emotions, insecurities, experiences, or limited understanding of your life. If you carry all of them seriously, you end up living a life filtered through other people's minds instead of your own. Learning to stop giving value to unnecessary opinions is not about ignoring feedback completely. Constructive criticism from someone who genuinely wants to help can be useful. But random negativity, judgment without context, gossip, or impulsive comments from people who don't understand your journey do not deserve emotional space. When you fail to make this distinction, your mind becomes crowded with voices that do not belong to you. Every time you react strongly to an opinion, you are indirectly giving it importance. That reaction feeds the idea that what they said has power over your identity. Over time, this weakens your confidence and makes you dependent on external validation. You start adjusting yourself not based on your values, but based on what others might think. That is a stressful way to live because people's opinions are inconsistent and constantly changing. The truth is, people will always have something to say. If you succeed, they will have opinions. If you fail, they will have opinions. If you stay silent, they will still interpret you in their own way. So if opinions are unavoidable, the only logical solution is to control how much access they have to your mind. When you stop valuing unnecessary opinions, you protect your focus. Your energy becomes reserved for what actually matters: your goals, your growth, and your peace. You begin to understand that silence is sometimes stronger than explanation, and indifference is more powerful than reaction. Over time, this mindset builds emotional independence. You no longer feel the need to defend every action or prove every decision. Instead, you move with clarity, knowing that your direction is not determined by outside noise but by your own inner standards. That is where real mental freedom begins. Detaching your identity from validation means learning not to depend on other people's approval to feel worthy, confident, or complete. Many people unknowingly build their self-image based on external feedback. Compliments make them feel valuable, while criticism makes them feel small. This creates a fragile mindset where self-worth constantly rises and falls depending on how others respond to them. When your identity is tied to validation, you lose control over your emotional stability. You start making decisions not based on what you truly believe, but based on what will get approval. You may change your behavior, your opinions, or even your goals just to fit in or avoid judgment. Over time, this disconnects you from your authentic self and replaces it with a version shaped by expectations. Detachment does not mean you stop caring about people or become emotionally distant. It means you stop relying on external approval as the source of your confidence. You can still appreciate praise, but you don't depend on it to feel complete. Similarly, you can accept criticism without letting it define your worth. This creates emotional balance because your identity is no longer controlled by outside reactions. One of the biggest illusions in life is believing that validation brings lasting happiness. In reality, it is temporary. Today's praise can turn into tomorrow's criticism. People's opinions change based on mood, trends, and perspective. If your identity is built on something so unstable, your peace will always remain unstable too. When you detach from validation, you begin to trust yourself more. You stop asking, do they approve? And start asking, does this align with me? That shift is powerful because it moves your focus inward instead of outward. You become more decisive, more confident, and less emotionally reactive. This mindset also builds resilience. You no longer feel crushed by rejection or overly dependent on recognition. You understand that your value does not increase when someone praises you and does not decrease when someone doubts you. It remains constant because it is rooted in self-awareness, not public opinion. Ultimately, detaching your identity from validation frees you from the pressure of constantly performing for others. You begin to live with authenticity, stability, and inner confidence that does not shake with external noise. Focusing on what you can control is one of the most practical and powerful mental habits you can develop. A lot of stress in life doesn't come from actual problems, but from wasting energy on things that are completely outside your influence. People spend hours worrying about what others think, what might happen in the future, or why certain situations unfolded the way they did, even though none of these things can be directly changed through worry. When you focus on what you cannot control, your mind enters a cycle of frustration. You think more but achieve less. You overanalyze situations, replay conversations, and imagine outcomes that may never happen. This drains your mental energy and leaves you feeling stuck even when there is nothing practical you can do in that moment. On the other hand, when you shift your attention to what is within your control, everything becomes clearer. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how you respond. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control your effort. You cannot control the past, but you cannot control the decisions you make right now. This shift turns anxiety into action. This mindset is not about ignoring problems, it is about directing your energy wisely. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me, you start asking, what can I do next? That simple change moves you from a passive mindset into an active one. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start becoming a participant in your own progress. People who master this habit tend to stay calmer under pressure. They do not get easily overwhelmed by uncertainty because they are trained to separate what is controllable from what is not. They invest their energy where it creates results, not where it creates stress. Over time, this approach builds mental discipline. You waste less time on emotional noise and more time on meaningful action. Your focus becomes sharper, your decisions become clearer, and your life feels more organized because your energy is no longer scattered across things you cannot change. In the end, peace comes not from controlling everything, but from controlling your attention. Emotional discipline is the ability to manage your inner state instead of being controlled by it. It is what allows a person to stay calm when things go wrong, think clearly when emotions are high, and act with intention rather than impulse. Most people don't struggle because they lack intelligence or ability, they struggle because their emotions make decisions for them in critical moments. Practicing emotional discipline daily means training yourself in small, consistent choices. It is built in everyday situations, not just in major life events. Choosing silence when you want to argue, choosing patience when you feel irritated, and choosing understanding when you feel offended are all examples of emotional control in action. These small decisions gradually reshape your mental habits. Without emotional discipline, a person becomes reactive. They respond instantly to every trigger, every comment, and every inconvenience. This creates unnecessary conflict, regret, and mental exhaustion. One moment of anger can damage relationships, one impulsive decision can ruin opportunities, and one emotional reaction can take hours or even days to recover from. Lack of control doesn't just affect the moment, it creates long-term consequences. With emotional discipline, there is space between feeling and action. That space allows you to evaluate situations more clearly. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause, observe, and then respond in a way that aligns with your values and long-term goals. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, it means understanding them without letting them take over your behavior. Building this habit requires repetition. You won't always get it right, but each time you choose control over impulse, you strengthen your emotional stability. Over time, situations that once triggered strong reactions begin to lose their power over you. You become less easily offended, less reactive, and more grounded. Emotional discipline also improves your relationships. When you are not constantly reacting emotionally, you can focus on the task at hand and stay calm. Communication becomes clearer and conflicts reduce. People around you feel more comfortable because your responses are stable, not unpredictable. Ultimately, emotional discipline is what separates temporary reactions from intentional living. It allows you to move through life with balance, clarity, and strength, even when circumstances are challenging. When your vision becomes bigger than your distractions, your entire mindset begins to change. Most people struggle not because they lack opportunities, but because they allow small things to pull their attention away from what truly matters. Distractions can be emotional, social, or mental negative conversations, unnecessary comparisons, short-term pleasure, or overthinking problems that don't contribute to your growth. When these distractions take priority, your focus becomes scattered and progress slows down. A strong vision acts like a filter. It helps you decide what deserves your attention and what does not. When you are clear about where you want to go, you start ignoring things that do not align with that direction. You don't waste energy proving yourself in every argument, reacting to every opinion, or chasing every temporary trend. Instead, you begin to protect your time and mental space like valuable assets. Distractions are powerful because they are immediate. They offer quick emotional responses: anger, excitement, fear, or validation. Vision, on the other hand, is long-term. It requires patience, discipline, and consistency. That is why many people get pulled away from their goals. They choose what feels good now over what matters later. But those who stay focused understand that short-term distractions often cost long-term success. When your goals are deeply rooted in your mind, you naturally become less reactive. A person building something meaningful does not have time to get stuck in every opinion or emotional disturbance. They learn to say no more often, not because they are detached from life, but because they are committed to something greater. This mindset creates mental strength. Instead of being pulled in multiple directions, you move with purpose. Your decisions become more intentional, your habits become more aligned, and your energy becomes more focused. Even challenges stop feeling overwhelming because your attention is not scattered. Over time, a strong vision reshapes your identity. You stop identifying as someone who reacts to life and start becoming someone who directs it. Distractions still exist, but they no longer control you. Your focus becomes stronger than your noise, and your purpose becomes louder than your distractions.